Guys, welcome to CakeWalk Cambridge. I'm Aisha and you're watching chapter 16.3 Reproduction. So this part we finally come to human reproduction. It's something that a lot of kids struggle with, and I personally didn't find it that difficult. So I hope I can break this down for you today. Also, I will be having a separate video at the end where I discuss frequently asked questions in reproduction and standard answers that examiners expect you to write. So anyways, let's get started. Okay, so first we're going to discuss the male reproductive system. So you will probably recognize a few labeled structures. One is the ureter, as we have already discussed in excretion. The bladder and the urethra. So these are structures that you should be very well versed with and very familiar with. Then other structures that are integral for you to know for your syllabus are the testis. So as soon as they talk about the male reproductive system or the structure that produces sperm, you need to be able to associate that with testis. Testis is always the first thing that has to come to mind. Also, testis, IS, is the singular spelling. T-E-S-T-E-S is the plural spelling. Then you have the penis. You have the epididymis, which is this part over here. Okay, that just is over the testis. You have erectile tissue, which helps keep the penis erect during sexual intercourse. You have the scrotum, which is a sac-like structure that holds the testis. And you have the seminal vesicle and the prostate gland. This structure you do not need to know. It is just there for reference. It is labeled for you. So the seminal vesicle is always over here on the sperm duct. Okay, this is the sperm duct. And the prostate gland is always over here right below the bladder. Okay, so we're going to look into the function of each of these structures in the next slide. Also, I would recommend going to the website BioNinja. It is really good when it comes to labeling diagrams. So if you want to take this up for yourself, you go to BioNinja and you look at the same diagram without the labels and you can fill it for yourself orally. And then you can check it with the labels. They also give you a small paragraph as to what each structure does or the function of each structure. So I highly recommend you do that. IGCSE also requires you to know the side view of each reproductive system. So here you have the bladder at the top. Okay, this would be your ureter. Okay, then here you have your urethra. As we've already discussed, this is the testis. The structure over the testis is the epididymis. You do not really need to know the pubic bone. As we also discussed, the prostate gland is always right below the bladder. Okay, this is the rectum. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know from your side view. Okay, so I definitely recommend BioNinja. And now the function of each structure. So one is the testis, the most important organ that you need to associate the male reproductive system with. It is used to produce sperm, okay, which is the male gamete. Then you have the epididymis, which stores the sperm. As we've already seen, the epididymis is located right above the testis. Okay, always remember epididymis over the testis. Then you have the penis, which primarily becomes sperm to insert into the vagina during sexual intercourse. We will look at sexual intercourse in the slides to come, but basically sexual intercourse is when the penis hardens and is inserted into the vagina, and sperm is transferred from the penis, from the testis via the sperm duct from the penis into the vagina. Okay. Then after that you have the prostate gland, which is right below the bladder. Okay, remember prostate gland below the bladder, epididymis over testis. Okay. So the prostate gland adds fluids and nutrients to the sperm to form semen. Semen is basically a fluid, okay, that is ejaculated into the vagina, and the sperm is found in this fluid, that is semen. Okay, the scrotum, as we've already discussed, is a sac that holds the testis and keeps it cool. Okay, so it keeps it at a different temperature from the body. Okay, then you have the seminal vesicle, which is located on the sperm duct. which also adds fluid and nutrients to the sperm to form semen. So remember, the seminal vesicle and the prostate gland have the same function. The urethra, as we've already discussed in excretion, passes semen containing sperm through the penis, and it also carries urine. So any of these two functions is right. Okay, and then you have the sperm duct, which is basically a muscular tube that links the testis to the urethra. So the sperm duct helps carry sperm from the testis to the urethra. Okay, and the urethra is in the penis, and so during sexual intercourse, sperm travels from the penis to the vagina. Okay, there was a paper in which way they had asked name an organ. Okay, and it should be a part of two systems. So if you look at testis, it is part of two systems. One is the endocrine system, where it produces testosterone, which is a hormone, and the endocrine system basically deals with hormones. And two is the reproductive system, where it produces sperm. And another organ that you can name is the urethra. One, the reproductive system, where it carries sperm and semen. And two, the excretory system, where it carries urine. Okay, so I would say these are really important, two important organs that you can name for such questions. And I've seen this question, it also appeared in my mock exam. And so yeah, I'd say just be well versed with their functions and don't fret or like don't get worried on the spot. It's not that hard. Okay, just remember the functions and you'll be good with which system they belong to. Okay, now we're moving on to the female reproductive system. So the female reproductive system is relatively easier, as in there are less organs to remember. So again, this is also taken from Bio Ninja. I definitely recommend you go there. So one is you have the vagina, which is this opening. The penis is inserted into the vagina during sexual intercourse. Then you have the cervix further up. Okay, it is this portion here. It dilates during childbirth. Then you have the endometrium. Now you have to know the endometrium is nothing but a fancy name for the uterus wall, the uterine lining. Okay, so I'd say you can use either interchangeably. But if you want to sound more technical and you want to like save time instead of writing uterus wall, I'd say go for endometrium. I always wrote endometrium. Then you have the uterus, that is this space here. Okay, this whole thing is the uterus. Here, these are oviducts or fallopian tubes. I have more regularly seen the term oviduct in past papers in IGCSE, so I'd recommend you use that term as well. But if you use fallopian tube, no problem. This is the funnel of the oviduct that is in your textbook. You do not need to know this term. Just remember that it is the funnel of the oviduct. And this structure right here, this circular structure, is the ovary. So as soon as you look at female reproductive system, you have to associate ovaries with it because ovaries produce ovules or egg cells, which is the female gamete. So you associate male reproductive system with testis and female reproductive system with ovary, always, okay? Because ovary produces the female gametes, which is the egg cell, and the testis produces the male gamete, which is the sperm cell. Okay, now we're going to look at the side view. Okay, so here is your fallopian tube. This is the funnel of your ovary. This is your ovary. This is your uterus. This is your uterus lining, which is the endometrium. Okay, or you can add uterus lining. The opening into the uterus is the cervix. This passageway right here is the vagina, and this is the urethra, and this is the bladder. That is all you need to know. It's actually really simple, and I was terrified to learn this chapter, okay, because it was like a really long chapter in my textbook, and a lot of you guys find it difficult as well. But I went to Bio Ninja, I discovered it, and it really helped me take it up for myself. So please do that. Not reiterated enough. Okay, again, the function. Okay, so basically the cervix, as we have seen, is the opening to the uterus. Okay, it is further up. The vagina is lower, the cervix is further up. It is a ring of muscle that separates the vagina from the uterus. Just remember, vagina, cervix, uterus. Okay. So just remember, cervix is in the middle of the two, separates them. Okay. Then the funnel of the oviduct, which is like that structure like that, where this is the ovary, this is the funnel. Okay. Sorry, this is funnel. Okay, yeah. So basically, it directs eggs from the ovary to the oviduct. It's the funnel of the ovary, not the oviduct. It directs eggs from the ovary to the oviduct. Okay, that's all it does. I've never seen this in any past paper. I've only seen this in my textbook. which you may not even be having because we may have different textbooks. But I'd say just know this so that when you see a structure, you don't freak out because you don't know it. Then the ovary produces egg cells. Always associate the ovary with the female reproductive system. Egg cells are the female gametes. Then you have the oviduct, which carries ovum from the ovary to the uterus. Okay. As you've seen, the oviduct links the ovary and the uterus. Now, how does it carry the egg cell? Basically, you have cilia in the walls of the oviduct, and they contract and move. You know, cilia, how it moves in the throat. It moves mucus towards the back of the throat. That's exactly what cilia does here. It moves the egg towards the uterus. And the oviduct is also where fertilization takes place. That is where the nucleus of the sperm cell fuses with the nucleus of the egg cell. Okay, that is fertilization. And the oviduct is where it takes place, not the uterus. Okay, it is the ovary. Okay. Then the urethra, we've already seen it in the excretory system. It carries urine from the bladder. Okay, the uterus is where the fetus develops. The uterus is where implantation takes place. We will look into that in a bit. And it is where the fetus develops. Fertilization is in the oviduct. Fetus development is in the uterus. Okay. And then the vagina basically receives the male penis during sexual intercourse, and the sperm is deposited at this site. Okay. You can take a screenshot of this if you want, and you can go over the functions. But this is basically a compilation of Mark's scheme answers plus my textbook. So yeah, I'd recommend you are well versed with this. Fertilization, I've already just given you the definition. It is the fusion of the nuclei from a male gamete, which is the sperm. Always, when you're talking about human reproduction, you need to write sperm and egg cell. Okay, always. And a female gamete, which is the egg cell or ovum. Both work. Okay, the initial product of fertilization is a zygote. I definitely say you include this line also in your answer, because fertilization could be a 2-mark definition. So you get 1 mark for the first part, and the second mark for the initial product of fertilization is a zygote. For human reproduction, always specify that you do not want to lose marks, and it is a really small add-on. So you can just say fertilization is the fusion of the nuclei from a male gamete, bracket sperm, and a female gamete, egg cell, to produce a zygote. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, now this basically covers fertilization. So basically, you have an egg cell that develops in the ovary. Okay. Then after that, it is released into the oviduct. Okay, we're going to get to the mechanism of everything in the coming slides. This is just an overview. It is released into the oviduct. Okay, fertilization takes place in the oviduct. Sperms swim towards the egg cell. As you can see, these are tiny little sperms. They swim towards the egg cell. One of them will fuse with the egg cell. The nuclei will fuse together and they will form a zygote. Then you can see the cell starts dividing by mitosis. The zygote divides by mitosis. So it's 2, then 4 cells, then 8 cells, then 16. It keeps multiplying exponentially. Once it reaches like 8 to 16 cells, it is deposited into the endometrium, which is the uterus lining. This is called implantation. Okay, depositing the hollow ball of cells into the uterus lining for development is implantation. Okay, this is basically how it works. Gametes. Sperm cell. Okay, this is really like my favorite part because it's so easy. I remember I got 4 marks straight away for this answer on one of my tests in school in reproduction. Okay, so this is basically the structure of a sperm cell. You should know that this is the tail. As we've already studied in bacterium, the tail is called the flagellum. As you can see, this is the word flagellum. It's singular, flagella is plural. So I'd say write flagellum, do not write tail. This is taken from Google, so that's why, some things may not match IGCSE, but this is a flagellum. Okay, what is the function of a flagellum? It helps locomotion. Locomotion, basically it helps to move the sperm on its own. So the sperm moves on its own account towards the egg cell. The sperm is not propelled by cilia like the egg cell. The sperm moves on its own using its flagellum. So locomotion is what the flagellum does. Then this is the middle piece, which contains mitochondria. The function of mitochondria is basically to aerobically respire to provide energy. Okay, provide energy, not for mitochondria. It's just provide energy. I'm sorry, that was a mistake. And you never ever write produce energy. You write provide energy. Produce energy is not accepted in IGCSE. You provide energy, okay? So the mitochondria is used to provide energy, okay, for movement. Basically, it provides energy for movement. Then you have the neck, you do not need to know this part, and you have the head. Now, what is exactly in the head? Okay, it has a nucleus. What is the function of a nucleus? Simple. We've done it in cell structure. It helps to control chemical activity and cell function. And now the top of the head is called the acrosome. Okay, that's the acrosome. Now, what does the acrosome do? It contains enzymes. Okay, hydrolytic enzymes. Hydrolytic enzymes are basically enzymes that help in breakdown reactions. Okay, so they once the sperm cell reaches the egg cell, the acrosome, which is the head of the sperm, releases enzymes which help dissolve or like break down the jelly coat of the egg cell. The egg cell has a jelly coat, okay? It's called the zona pellucida. You can write either jelly coat or zona pellucida, both are acceptable. Again, technical term, zona pellucida, otherwise jelly coat. Fine. So it helps to break down the zona pellucida of the egg cell. And so that helps the sperm penetrate the membrane of the egg cell, and then the jelly coat of the egg cell hardens to prevent other sperms from entering it as well. Okay, so the acrosome contains enzymes to break down the jelly coat of the egg cell, okay, for fertilization. So these four are really important. Once in a test, as I told you, we had to label the acrosome, the nucleus, the acrosome, nucleus, mitochondria, and flagellum, and write their functions. It was a 4 to 8 mark question. I'm not sure. But yeah, I got all of the marks because I knew this table by heart. Like, this wasn't really in my textbook, but I formed it for you guys for past paper solving. Okay, so just go through it. Now the egg cell. Okay, the drawing of an egg cell is so important. Okay, I had this in my test as well, the same test. We had to draw the egg cell and label structures, and I lost a mark because I didn't draw these follicles. Okay, follicles are basically other egg cells that are just about developing, that they will become egg cells basically. It's also called the corona radiata. Um, I know the word corona will appeal to some of you guys, okay? But anyways, let's not get there. So the corona radiata is basically the layer of follicles. Okay, so what you can do is when you draw this, you do not need to write corona radiata. You just write follicles. Label this as follicles, okay? Then you have the cytoplasm, which is of course super important. The zona pellucida, which is right below the follicles. The zona pellucida is also called the jelly coat, okay? And then you have the nucleus, okay? We're going to look at the function of each of them. So we're going to go for follicle cells first. They supply vital proteins to the cell. Okay, just remember they supply vital proteins to the cell. I have never seen past papers asking you the functions of follicle cells. I've only seen them asking you to draw egg cells, but I'd say memorize it. You never know. You all are like, what, 2022 right now maybe. I'm just releasing this video now. So you're like 2022 babies and you never know what can come in your paper. So yeah. Then the cytoplasm contains food reserves and energy stores, as we've already done in cell structure. Then you have the jelly coat, which protects the egg cell and is penetrated by the sperm cell. So this is actually taken right from your syllabus 2022. So I think memorize this point. The jelly coat protects the egg cell and it is penetrated by the sperm cell. It changes during fertilization. How does it change? It hardens. Why does it harden? So that no other sperm cells enter the egg cell. And how is it penetrated by the sperm cell? The acrosome releases enzymes. Okay, so I hope this helped you, this recap. And then the nucleus again controls cell chemical activity. Okay, this is the drawing. Also, remember to label the membrane, which is this area, like here. This. Okay, that is the cell membrane. Okay, don't forget about it. Easy marks. Okay, now we're going to look at the differences between the egg cell and the sperm cell. So the egg cell, so food reserves, energy stores present in the egg cell, absent in the sperm cell. So from where does the sperm cell get nutrients? Semen. How? The prostate gland and seminal vesicle add nutrients and fluid to the sperm to form semen. So the nutrients are obtained from semen. The size, an egg cell is large, a sperm cell is small. Okay. Production scale, Egg cells are produced on a large scale in large quantities, like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Sperm cells are produced on a large scale in large quantities, okay? Because and accurate. So sperm cells are produced in large quantities. Egg cells are produced like once or twice a month. Okay, and that is it. So very small quantities. Now, why are there so many sperm cells produced? Because it increases the chance of fertilization taking place because you only have one egg cell or max two. So usually I have only one egg cell. So the probability that a sperm cell actually reaches the egg cell is very low because the shelf life of sperm cells is really small. Okay, and they may not, all of them swimming towards the egg cell may not make it there in time. Some of them die on the way because the shelf life is small. The amount of nutrients available is less. So, sperm cells are produced in large quantities to increase the probability of fertilization to take place. Then motility. Egg cells are propelled by cilia and the oviduct. As you know, cilia contract back and forward to allow egg cells to be pushed towards the uterus. Whereas in sperm cell, it has a flagellum for locomotion. We already looked at that difference. And then again, egg cells are round, sperm cells are streamlined. I'd say memorize all five of these because it's very likely that in an exam you'll forget at least one or two with the whole pressure and stress of exams coming. So just one or two memorize all five of them so you're good. Usually this comes to a 3 to 4 mark answer. The differences between egg and sperm cell. So these are like easy marks. You should know them. This chapter honestly is really scoring. It's not hard. It's just the stigma that we have in our head against, the chapter reproduction because it's really long and, like there are so many questions about this chapter. So I'd say it's actually really scoring. So don't worry. Okay, sex hormones. I've already told you that the testis is also part of the endocrine system. It produces the sex hormone testosterone. Now, what I didn't tell you is the function of testosterone. So basically, it helps to stimulate the development of secondary sexual characteristics in males. If you're a guy, you're probably experiencing this right now. Deepening of the voice, pubic hair growth, and enlargement of the testis, which is what we associate the male reproductive system with. And in the female reproductive system, the ovary produces estrogen, which causes the development of secondary sexual characteristics in females, which is basically the growth of pubic hair, the development of breasts, the widening of hips, and increasing the size of the uterus. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. You probably know this already. You're a teenager. You're probably seeing this happening around you, within you. So yeah, it's not new. Just know that these are the hormones that are produced, and do not misspell them. I've highlighted them in bold so that you do not misspell them. Okay, so just remember their names. Because very often in the mark scheme, they underline them. And when a word is underlined in the mark scheme, it means that you cannot misspell it. Okay, so it's a keyword. Okay, now we're going to look at the hormonal cycle, the menstrual cycle in females. Okay, so basically, the menstrual cycle in females, it is usually called when a girl usually is on her menstrual cycle, when she bleeds through her vagina, we call it periods. Okay, the scientific term for it is menstrual cycle. Okay, so why does this bleeding happen? The bleeding is basically the breakdown of the uterus wall. The lining of the uterus wall breaks down. Okay, so this happens in a 28-day cycle. So I'm going to explain it to you. Okay, so in the beginning of the cycle, the uterus wall breaks down. Now, what exactly happens in the menstrual cycle? Okay, the ovary releases an egg cell or an ovum, okay, once in the month. Okay, the egg cell travels down to the uterus. Okay, if it is not fertilized, or to the oviduct, if the egg cell is not fertilized, okay, by any sperm cell, if it is not fertilized, after some time, the uterus wall. So when the egg cell, okay, wait, let me start from the beginning. The ovary releases an egg cell. Okay, as soon as the egg cell is released, the uterus wall prepares for implantation. Okay, because the egg cell is released for it to be fertilized, right? So the uterus wall, the lining of the uterus wall thickens. Okay, it becomes thicker, and after a point, if the egg cell is not fertilized by a sperm cell, the uterus wall breaks down and the cycle continues. Okay, so initially the cycle usually, as taught, begins with the uterus wall breaking down. Okay, and then after that the uterus wall builds up again. ovulation takes place. Okay, this day 14 is usually where ovulation takes place in all your papers, because usually you have a 28-day cycle which lasts a month. Okay, and in the middle of the cycle, that is day 14, ovulation takes place. Okay, the uterus wall builds up to its maximum, and then fertilization has not taken place by 28 days, so the uterus wall breaks down again, and the cycle continues. Okay, so we're gonna now discuss the different hormones involved in this cycle. So one is at ovulation. Just remember the hormone LH, which is luteinizing hormone, is always at its peak. So in your exams, they give you graphs of different hormones and they tell you to label the graphs, like which graph, which line represents which hormone. Just remember the one that peaks at day 14, the one that peaks at the ovulation day, is always LH. Okay. The one that is also high, like the one that also increases during ovulation is FSH, okay, which is follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, so just remember, LH peaks during ovulation without a doubt. In MCQ's theory, anything. LH peaks at ovulation. Another hormone that increases during ovulation is FSH. Then progesterone continues its path. It is not affected by ovulation. It just increases to a certain point after ovulation. So progesterone is at its maximum after ovulation, okay, and then it decreases. So progesterone is really easy to remember because it's a smooth curve upwards and then a smooth curve downwards. LH is also like pretty stable, then a spike, a sudden spike on ovulation day, and then it decreases down to its original. FSH also, it's a smaller spike, okay. And estrogen is the one that is more variable, where it increases, decreases, increases, and decreases. So just remember that these are your graphs, okay, because they come for questions, and initially I used to get very flustered by them. Like, how does IGCSE expect me to know which graph is for what? And then I found this trick to memorize them. Okay, so here you can see this graph represents the lining of the uterus wall. It is at its thickest, and then it decreases, it breaks down during menstruation, okay, which is like these couple days. Then after that, it increases, okay, and it increases to day 28, and then it breaks down again, which represents this part, okay. Now these estrogen and progesterone are hormones that are released in the ovary, okay. So this is what's happening in the ovary in terms of the levels of hormones produced, and this is also happening in the ovary. This is basically the development of the egg cell. As I told you, they come from follicles. Okay, and at ovulation, the egg cell is released. After the egg cell is released from the follicle, the structure is called a copious luteum. Okay, the follicle that is just burst open to release the egg cell, it is called a copious luteum. Okay, you have to know this word, very important. Okay, copious luteum, sorry. So that is basically it. Okay, and then you have in the pituitary gland, which is in the brain, LH and FSH that are released. Okay. Now, these are the functions of each of the hormones. Estrogen, we've already discussed, it promotes the development of secondary sexual characteristics in females. Also, it causes the thickening of the uterus wall. As you can see, with an increase in estrogen, the uterus wall thickens as well. And it inhibits the production of FSH. The word inhibit means stops the production. So basically curbs the production of FSH. Progesterone helps in the maintenance of the uterus wall or the endometrium. So estrogen helps thicken it. Progesterone helps maintain the thickness. Okay, it doesn't help thicken it, it helps maintaining the thickness. Okay, and it inhibits the production of LH. Okay, so basically progesterone is high towards after ovulation because that is when the egg cell is released. And so progesterone has to make sure that no other egg cell is released and that the uterus wall remains thick. So progesterone inhibits LH, stops the production of LH and maintains the uterus wall. Now what does LH do? LH helps to release the ovum into the oviduct. So now you can see why progesterone helps stop LH. Because while progesterone has to maintain the thickness of the uterus wall, it has to ensure no other egg cells enter the oviduct, right? And luteinizing hormone is responsible for releasing the egg cell into the oviduct. So by stopping the production of luteinizing hormone, it helps to prevent the release of an ovum into the oviduct. That's it. And FSH is basically helping it. The name is pretty much self-explanatory. It helps the maturation of follicles in the ovary. basically development of the follicles. So again, estrogen has thickened the uterus wall. So while the uterus wall is thickening, like at around this point, okay, the body has to make sure that no more egg cells are maturing right now, because no more should be released, because the uterus is prepared to release prepared for implantation of one. Okay, so it helps to stop FSH. Okay, so I know this is really random, but the way I remember this is my mom's name is Priya and my mom's surname is Low. I'm Aisha Low, so she's Priya Low. So I remember that P and L, so progesterone and luteinizing hormone. So progesterone inhibits LH, Priya Low, progesterone luteinizing. That's basically how I used to make these own acronyms in my head. So if you remember my mom, then good for you. That's basically how I did it. So yeah, and obviously estrogen will then inhibit FSH. Inhibit is also a very fancy keyword they like in mark schemes, so try to use that instead of prevents the production of. Okay. Okay, now what is ovulation? It is the release of an egg cell from the ovary into the oviduct. Believe it or not, this could be a 3-mark question. I've seen it for 2 to 3 marks, and every point carries a mark. So please, please, please don't mess this up. I've literally put this on one slide in bold letters because it's so easy, and I want this to stick in your head. Okay, so yeah. Now fertilization. Okay, this is basically going to summarize everything that I taught you. Okay, it's going to give you keywords, and I would definitely suggest taking a screenshot of this and memorizing it, because you have these for 5-mark questions, and I never lost my marks in these questions. Okay, so it's a 5-mark question. These are the steps of how fertilization takes place and implantation as well. So yeah, let's get into it. As I've told you, at ovulation, the egg cell is released into the oviduct. Okay, what is ovulation? The release of an egg cell from the ovary into the oviduct. Okay, the sperm in the semen enters the vagina at sexual intercourse. Okay, so now what happens is at sexual intercourse, as I told you, erectile tissue contracts, the penis hardens and becomes erect. The penis is inserted into the vagina, and ejaculation, that is basically the semen is released, ejaculated into the vagina, and the sperm cells and the semen swim or like move towards the egg cell. Okay, so the sperm and the semen enters the vagina. The sperm use the flagellum, the tail, flagellum keyword, to swim towards the egg cell, locomotion. Then at the egg cell, the acrosome, which is the head of the sperm, the top part, produces enzymes that digest this jelly coat. What is the jelly coat? Zona pellucida. Okay, digests the jelly coat. Then what happens? The jelly coat hardens after the sperm penetrates the egg cell. So the penetration is basically entering, breaking through the membrane. So the sperm breaks through this egg cell membrane, enters the egg cell, and the jelly coat around the egg cell hardens. Okay, so it prevents other sperms from entering as well. Then the nucleus of the sperm and the nucleus of the egg cell fuse. And the sperm, now, just recalling, is the male gamete. The egg cell is the female gamete. What happens after that? A zygote is formed. That is the first product of fertilization, and it is also what I want you to include in your definition. Make me proud. Then after that, the zygote is moved via peristalsis and cilia movement towards the uterus. So as you can see, this is all happening in the oviduct. Fertilization took place in the oviduct. Then the cilia, which is the hair-like projections in the lining of the ovary walls, of the oviduct walls, contract, move forward and backwards to push the zygote towards the uterus. Okay. Then this structure, this ball of cells, is implanted into the uterus wall. Then this ball of cells, okay, that is formed, it's called a hollow ball of cells. That is how you describe your embryo. That is called your embryo, a hollow ball of cells. Okay, never forget that. When usually in questions they ask you for a 1-mark question, what is the hollow ball of cells that is implanted into the uterus wall? Embryo. No spelling mistakes. I've made it bold, so I'm not forgiving you if you lose your mark there. Okay, I'm just not. Then after that, the embryo develops in the uterus. Okay, forms a fetus, which is like the first stage of like being a baby, the fetus. Okay, so that is pretty much what fertilization is. It is that easy. Like, was this hard? I don't think it was hard. I think I've put it down pretty well for you guys, but let me know in the comments if there's anything I could have done better. Okay. Now this is basically labor and after birth. So after the embryo has matured, okay, and like it's become a fetus, then a baby is formed. Okay, the baby is formed. Now this is basically labor. What happens is the amniotic sac breaks down. So now in the uterus, okay, the baby is held in an amniotic sac. There's a sac that holds the baby, okay, and the amniotic sac contains amniotic fluid, which is amnion. Okay, we're going to get into the function of each of these later. Okay, so the amniotic sac in the uterus breaks down. Okay, what happens? This is called the breaking of waters. So water may fall through the woman's vagina, the female's vagina. Okay, and that is the first indicator of like labor is hit or like the woman is going to reproduce. Two, the uterus starts contracting. Okay, starts contraction, and the cervix. What is the function of the cervix? A ring of muscles that separates the vagina from the uterus. So the cervix dilates. What does dilation mean? It becomes wider. Okay. Then the baby is pushed out of the vagina. Okay. So the baby exits through the vagina, and the umbilical cord is cut and tied. Now, what is basically the umbilical cord? If you've seen in movies, or maybe if you have a sibling or something and you're old enough to understand, the umbilical cord is basically a cord like a extension from from the baby's belly button to the mother, okay, the placenta. So basically, what happens is the umbilical cord is cut after the baby is pulled out, and it is tied so that the baby doesn't lose blood via the umbilical cord. Okay, and the placenta breaks away from the uterus. Okay, we're going to get into the functions of amniotic sac, amniotic fluid, umbilical cord, and placenta right after this, so don't freak out. Um, so yeah, the placenta then breaks away from the nucleus after the umbilical cord is cut and tied, and this is called after birth. So again, exits through the vagina. Okay. Yeah, this is basically the yeah. Let me just try. I should have actually included a diagram. So basically, let's just say this is the uterus. Okay, I'm just gonna draw it very roughly. Okay, this is the uterus. Okay, this could be the amniotic sac, which is what holds the baby. Okay, so let's just say this is the baby. I'm sorry for my drawing, but yeah, that is the baby. Okay, this is the head of the baby. This was supposed to be like that. Okay, now here the baby, this is the baby's belly button. There is an umbilical cord that is attached here. Okay, and right over here there is the placenta. So this is the placenta, this is the umbilical cord, this is the baby, this is the amniotic sac, and this is the uterus. Okay, so now we're going to look into what the functions of the placenta, umbilical cord, amniotic fluid, and amniotic sac are. So the placenta acts as a barrier to prevent toxins and pathogens from entering the fetus's blood. So obviously there may be toxins and pathogens in the mother's blood. Okay, and the placenta and umbilical cord is where gas exchange occurs, exchange of nutrients occurs, exchange of waste product occurs. Okay, that's where it happens. So the placenta kind of acts as a barrier to stop toxins like from entering the fetus's blood, because if it goes through the placenta, it'll go through the umbilical cord and then into the fetus. Correct. It also helps move molecules across the concentration gradient. So the mother will have more nutrients in her blood than the baby, right? Because the mother will be consuming um, a proper diet and everything. So the molecules move from a higher concentration in the placenta to a lower concentration through the placenta and the umbilical cord to the baby. Okay, so across a concentration gradient. Then the umbilical cord, which is this extension, helps to transfer oxygen and nutrients from the mother to the baby. It is basically the connect between the placenta and the baby. It's like that link, the bridge. And it also helps transfer waste products. So just remember all of these are by the way in your mark schemes and syllabus. So I'd say please remember this for me, at least. So it helps to transfer oxygen and nutrients from the mother to the baby and transfer of waste products from the baby to the mother. Then the amniotic sac and fluid basically protects the baby against jerks. So very often the mother may, you can be careless sometimes while walking. You may walk into a chair or something or fall. So very often this could cause the baby to move in the uterus. So the amniotic sac prevents the baby from feeling jerky pressure due to the amniotic fluid being present. Okay, then the fluid helps to maintain the temperature. Okay, and it also allows the baby to swallow. That is, sometimes babies will swallow, so if they swallow the fluid, it's fine. Okay. I'm going to do a separate video, as I said earlier, where I give standard question and answers that are asked a lot in papers with, like, especially five marks, 3 marks, 4 marks, definitions, everything for this chapter especially. So I will include the function of the amniotic sac and fluid from a proper mark scheme, 10 pointer mark scheme, into that video. So don't worry. But for now, you should know this, okay, for sure. If you want to take a screenshot, I'm just going to erase all of this for you. I don't know if you wonder, but yeah, sure, why not? Okay, next. Okay, one of the first organs that forms in the embryo is the heart. Why? It has to pump blood to the rest of the fetus, okay? Then in the uterus, there is an increase in complexity. What is complexity? This is an MCQ. Wait, what is development? Development is an increase in complexity. So there is an increase in complexity brought about by development as a result of growth. Okay, development is not an increase in growth, it is an increase in complexity. Comes in various past papers. Okay, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, but yeah. Then, of course, the size of the baby increases with time, the complexity increases with time, which is development, growth, everything. Okay. And you should be able to state this. There are some toxins like nicotine and some pathogens like rubella virus that can pass across the placenta and affect the fetus. So now, what is nicotine? I think I've discussed this in chapter 12. Nicotine is basically a part of smoke, okay, a part of a cigarette, which causes the cigarette to be addictive. Okay, it's an addictive substance. Okay, so if a mother is prone to smoking, she'll probably have nicotine in her blood, and that can pass through to the baby, through the placenta. Okay, and rubella is a disease. Okay, it is like a condition, and if anyone catches rubella, and then the virus can pass across the placenta and affect the fetus. Now, why is this? Because these toxins and pathogens are really small, so they can move through the pores of the placenta. Okay, so that was a question. In May, I would recommend you do this one. I'm just gonna write it down for you. May, June 2020, paper 42. There was a long ass question 2, I think, that dealt with the movement of substances across the placenta. And it was a really tricky question that my best friend and I attempted together. We didn't get it right. So I'd say go through it, go through the mark scheme, and try to understand how movement across the placenta works. So yeah. Okay, now we're gonna go into twins. I've not seen this in your syllabus, very surprisingly, but I thought I'll include it because, well, curiosity, and then of course, I mean, it's in my textbook, so yeah. And yeah, my textbook was my Bible for my IGCSE. So basically, fraternal twins are not identical twins. So that is when the ovary releases 2 egg cells into the oviduct. So sperm cells fertilize both of the egg cells, and both of the egg cells, oh my god, this picture's named them. Okay. Both of the egg cells form 2 zygotes, which are both then deposited into the uterus and implanted. Okay. So yeah, and then they form 2 children, 2 babies, everything. So Joe and Pam, apparently. And then identical twins is when one egg cell is fertilized by a sperm cell, but the egg cell then divides and forms 2 twins. I mean, sorry, 2 children, which is basically identical twins. So in my school, we had a set of identical twins. They looked the same, okay, for the longest time. But then when you get to know them, you know they're different. So yeah, you know that they are formed from one egg cell. Okay, so if you look at identical twins, don't be creepy. Just think in your mind, okay, one egg cell. Cool. That is basically how it works. Not seen any questions about twins, but yes, in MCQs they ask you like these kind of diagrams. So just know this, okay? Fraternal is 2 separate egg cells, identical is 1 egg cell. Okay, antenatal care. What is antenatal care? It is basically what you need to do before giving birth. So one is dietary needs, that is taking in enough iron and folic acid to prevent anemia. Folic acid is basically a vitamin, Anemia is basically a condition where you are tired and sleepy a lot. Okay, it is a lack of red blood cells in your body. Okay, a type of this is sickle cell anemia, which I've covered in inheritance, I think, and I will also cover it in variation. So yeah, so there needs to be an intake of iron and folic acid. Smoking and alcohol must be avoided. These are the effects of smoking and alcohol. The babies are more prone to falling ill. They have a lower weight. They can be deformed and have brain damage. The last 2 points are in conjunction with a syndrome, a condition called FAS, fetal alcohol syndrome, which is basically a condition caused by an excessive intake of alcohol by the mother. Okay, so these are basically the effects of it. So I'd say memorize these four. You have no choice. You just have to. And then I also discussed with you rubella. Um, the virus can pass through the placenta into the baby's blood, and that could cause stillbirth. Okay, and so very often a mother in my textbook it was written that abortion has taken place due to like the baby being affected by rubella, and that is not very ethical, according to a lot of people. It's a controversial topic, so I'm not going to say anything there. So yeah. Um, the effect of rubella is one, defects in the eye, which is cataracts, and two, defects in the ear, which is deafness. Okay, also for like these kind of questions, you have a lot of tables where they compare like the mass of the baby reproduced and the mother's dietary intake, and they say describe, compare, analyze, or whatever. So just like for those questions, you don't need knowledge about dietary needs of the mother. You just need knowledge. You just need to apply. Like you just need to look at the data and use the data to just compare and contrast, and you use your knowledge of human nutrition, that is the carbohydrates and their properties, and proteins and their functions, and relate it to the thing. You don't really need reproduction as your main topic in such questions. It is human nutrition. And yeah, now we're going to look at the differences between breastfeeding milk and bottled milk. So very often mothers are unable to provide milk from their breasts after their baby is born. It happens in many mothers, it's common. And so babies are weaned off to formula milk. Okay. So now we're going to look at the advantages and disadvantages of both. So breastfeeding milk is always produced at the right temperature because it is natural. There is no cost because it is natural. It has sufficient nutrients because it is natural and is produced by the mother. So she has to take in enough for her diet because she has to cater to needs of the baby and herself. It also provides passive immunity. I've already covered this in chapter 10, where there is a transfer of antibodies from the mother to the baby via the breastfeeding milk. There are no allergic reactions because it is from the mother, no additives, no preparation time, and also the baby taking in the milk by sucking the mother's nipples helps to reduce the size of the uterus in the mother. Okay. Now, bottled milk. An advantage of bottled milk is that there are more nutrients. It allows the father to feel involved in the whole process of feeding the baby. This is not such a solid argument, but it's in my textbook. It is not stressful. So very often breastfeeding can be stressful. Like if a mother is stressed, the milk in her breast may dry up. Okay, and that could cause more stress. Okay. So yeah, formula milk has nutrients and everything, so it's not stressful. And one disadvantage of formula milk is that there may be social restrictions. So many people, older people, may look down on formula milk, like due to old like legends and tales of bottle milk being bad for kids or whatever. They may not want people they know to let their kids have bottle milk. But let me assure you, there's no problem with that at all whatsoever. It's just something that is socially, it's your own perspective. So yeah, and it's not a scientific perspective. So yeah, that is just one reason why people may prefer breastfeeding over formula milk. Okay, and one disadvantage of breastfeeding milk is mastitis or mastitis. I'm not really sure how you pronounce this. So basically, it is when the nipples of the mother become sore because breastfeeding. So basically, breastfeeding is when the baby sucks the nipples of the mother, right? And when this happens, the nipples may become sore. Okay, and that is what this condition is. So to prevent that from happening, to prevent the mother from like feeling pain or whatever, bottled milk can help. So yeah, that was the chapter. I hope I broke it down for you. I hope I put it across easily. I know this is a really long video and I apologize for that. But I combined two segments in this video, that is sexual hormones and sexual reproduction in humans, to try and put them in conjunction with each other and make it easier for you to understand. I hope this helped you. I hope you were able to understand. If you have any questions, the comment section is always open and available for you, and you can email me. My email is on the YouTube channel. My email ID is on the YouTube channel. And yeah, if you like this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, turn on those post notifications, and let's just get ready for 16.4 and 16.5. I will be uploading the videos real soon, I promise. So yeah, don't stress about this chapter, it's really easy. Let's get through this together.